I've spent now more than 25 years in personal development. And not just by reading books or watching YouTube videos, but by practicing in all areas of my life. And like many of us, I was looking for transformation, how to become better, and for more happiness. And what I've come to understand is that true transformation isn't about adding something new or acquiring new skills. The main part of it is loosening our rigid models of the world. And for me, the best way to give up these models is by shadow work. Shadow work is a great set of tools introduced by Carl Jung to find your true self. But there are also some misconceptions about that. And in this video, I want to introduce some common mistakes when practicing shadow work. Because I think understanding them is crucial for success. So when we are looking for transformation, when we are looking to become a better version of ourselves, we have to be willing to replace our old strategies and also our old identities that no longer serve us with something more authentic, something that fits better to who we truly are. And if I'm talking about this authentic self, so who is that really? And if we're looking on the trajectory of our life, of human life, so when we are born, we're basically a free person, right? We don't have this protection. We don't have these identities to protect us. But at one point in time, we're starting to build internal defenses. So the question now is, what happens between our birth and the moment we start to build these defenses? What is causing that? And this is usually something that we perceive as something bad, because it's a moment where our development in self-esteem or self-love or self-trust just arrests. I like to call this building up our ego, our identity, or how Carl Jung calls it, our persona. It's kind of an arrested development of ourself. That means when we finally end up as grown-ups, we're walking on the planet with the self-esteem of a 5-year-old or of a young kid. And we're wondering why the world won't meet us where we are. But the truth is the world can't go back for us. So we have to go back to this point where we arrested our development, and we have to go back to this more authentic version of ourselves. And when I'm talking here about the moment where this development stopped, it's actually not one moment. There are many moments in our life where we're just adding more and more layers of protection, and we think they will keep us safe. And we think we need them to survive in our world, in our relationships. But is this true? I mean, yes, our persona, our identity, our masks, they give us some protection. But they also cement that bounded child. And we are burying our authentic self deeper under the weight of our defenses. And here comes shadow work into play. So what is the goal of shadow work? The goal is actually, to talk in technical terms, a factory reset. We need to go back and rescue this little boy or this little girl before the protection was ever needed. Because everything that defines you, your beliefs, your drivers, your habits, your values, is currently protected by these layers. Now the problem is with protecting this child not only from external situations or stress, we also protect it from ourselves, from our ego. If you want to go back, if you want to go deeper inside you, if you want to go through these protections, you will face resistance. So it is important to know that resistance is actually a part of the process. And it's a good sign if you feel that, because it shows you that you're moving in the right direction. And usually the closer you get to the truth of who you are, the more intense the resistance will feel, because your programming is fighting to keep the status quo. So trust me, you're not broken. It's simply your programming doing its job. And you have to be willing to move through it to get back to the real you. And how can we do that? You guessed it already, by shadow work. Shadow work is the practical method for identifying the parts of ourselves that we have hidden away in those layers of protection. But because this work goes so deep into our programming, it is very easy to stumble or to get lost in the process. And that's why I want to share with you 5 specific mistakes that I've made during my experiences with shadow work and that helped me to navigate through these layers. And I hope that helps you to make your own journey back to authenticity a little bit clearer. Let's start with mistake number 1, treating shadow work like a crisis fix. In the beginning, I usually did shadow work only when I felt bad, when something was already really off. I used it kind of as an emergency therapy. I started it, for example, when I had a problem in my career or in my relationship. And I didn't understand that shadow work isn't a quick fix for a bad week or something like that. But it's a slow, cumulative, unfolding process. You can think of it more like a daily practice, similar to meditation or journaling, rather than a trip to the psychologist or coach. And I can see this also in some of my clients. If you only show up when things are falling apart, that means you're just managing a crisis and you're not integrating your shadow. If you're serious about shadow work, be patient with the process and let the effects build up over time. And also get some help if it's getting difficult or if you're stuck somewhere. I found that having a therapist or a mentor or a coach alongside this practice can be extremely helpful when the heavy stuff surfaces. But don't forget, they cannot do the work for you. You have to walk the way alone. The second mistake is only hunting for the bad stuff. Our shadow sounds like something dark, right? It sounds like a basement for our bad traits like aggression or selfishness. But that's actually not correct. Our shadow is all our characteristics that we hide away because they don't fit in our current way of life. So it can be also positive things like creativity or ambitiousness. Start to see your shadow as a collection of good and bad things. And we all have good and bad things. And Jung pointed it out already. The shadow contains also a lot of gold. And by that he meant the positive qualities that we just rejected because they felt like unsafe or too much in a certain moment. And I, for example, in my corporate days, I realized that I had suppressed a lot of my creativity and also my boldness because I wanted to fit in into a certain society and into a certain culture. So don't think of shadow work only as something to deal with your bad stuff. Start asking yourself what strengths you have disowned to stay small or protected. And reclaiming that rejected goodness is often the fastest way to regain your sovereignty in your work and in your personal life. The third mistake is thinking understanding is the same as integration. And that was a big one for me. I thought that because I could explain my shadow intellectually, I had in a way solved it. And that's actually where many of us stuck, right? We know exactly our bad habits. We know what we should do and what we shouldn't. And we continue to read all this advice on the internet, on social media every day. But still, we're not able to change our lives. Because knowledge is not integration. You have to get in action. And I, for example, I can do that best when I move my body and when I face physical limits. Because that helps me to actually embody the new models that I'm trying to build. And integration means a behavioral change. It means doing things actually differently in the real world and not just thinking about them in your head. So my recommendation here would be use physical challenges or small daily habit shifts to prove to your programming that the new you is actually in charge and that it is in process. Mistake number 4 is going into the woods alone. Well, shadow work can be uncomfortable. We will dig up a lot of truths that we're not really proud of. And there's also a certain pride in wanting to do this deep work completely alone. I tried that also during some of my most intense periods, and frankly, the material became sometimes overwhelming. Because the shadow is, by definition, what we cannot see about ourselves. And that means we need mirrors to show us our blind spots. Now, whether this is a coach or a partner or a friend or a therapist, or even a trusted community, you need someone to reflect the truth back and also to reflect the process you're on to understand if you're on the right way. If you find yourself stuck in the same emotional patterns or if old trauma starts to emerge, that is the moment to seek support. Having an accountability partner doesn't make you weaker. It will actually allow you to go much deeper than you could ever go alone. The last mistake I want to share today is waiting for the finish line. Again, shadow work is not some short-term therapy that you do and then you're healed and you never do it again. We all have different parts in our psyche. We have our ego, we have our different archetypes that show up, and we also have all our shadow. And we will always keep our shadow. And that's a good thing because sometimes we need this protection. Sometimes we need to have this difference and this separation in ourselves. So the factory reset I was talking about earlier, it's not a destination you reach and then you leave it behind and you're done with it. Self-overcoming is a lifelong process. And that's also the great thing, and that's also the thing that you will most enjoy about it. Because the deeper you dig, the more new parts you will find out about yourself, and you will grow actually greater every year. So if you expect to complete this work, you will eventually get frustrated and quit. Of course, you should have milestones, and you should aim to solve certain problems and to move on and do something new. But after that, don't stop the work. Embrace it as a practice. Shadow work is a way of living that keeps you aligned with yourself as you grow. Okay, these were the 5 most common pitfalls when starting or when practicing shadow work, that some of them to a larger or smaller extent I also faced during my work. And I must say today I adopted shadow work as my most practical tool for personal autonomy. And by that I navigate disruptions and I stay grounded in who I actually am. And if this resonates with you, I've put together a shadow work starter kit based on the experiences to help you to start your own rescue mission. So hop over to our website and check out our shadow work app. And with this, I want to say thank you. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was helpful. And I wish you a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you.